Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I believe we are live.
Awesome.
Fingers crossed. It should be working. If it's not, anyone can let me know. Believe. So yeah, I think it is working. Lovely. Okay,
Okay.
so yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Chatter. Today I am back with Greg Foss. Greg, welcome back to the show, man.
Yeah, it's a pleasure being here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, as soon as I saw the Canadian truckers sort of situation going down, I've been watching it unfold and
Yeah.
baffled at the lack of media coverage, like completely baffled.
Baffled or it's finally opened. And I'll say this because my wife is absolutely beside herself. You know, she started not trusting mainstream media a little while ago, but this is just so flagrant. It's not funny, especially in Canada, where we have tons of different streaming avenues that show the truth versus mainstream media saying stuff like, oh, there's a couple of thousand people when there's literally hundreds of thousands of people. You know, I mean, the orders of magnitude of lying and deception is just, it's disgraceful. And it makes you wonder when you when you grew up, when you only had newspapers and radio to rely upon, you never had cameras in your pockets and social media platforms to get alternative views. How much of this was, coerced in the past? So it's lots of stuff going on, no question. In Canada, we're right at the epicenter, aren't we?
Yeah, and I mean that's not where I'd imagined things would go, sort of initially when this first all kicked off. You know,
Okay.
I hadn't envisioned that at all that Canada would be the place that really like exploded as the.
It's neat or not neat. Look, I'm really proud of the truckers, and I want to stress a couple of things here, and this is important to lay the foundation is the way I look at things. Okay, firstly, I'm doubly vaxxed. I have my entire family is doubly, and in the case of my son who lives in France for his job, he plays hockey in France, believe it or not, has to be triple vaxxed. All right. So we were all, been poked a couple of times here. And, but let's say my daughter, who's 21 years old, was against it because she wanted to get pregnant. There's no way I could bring myself to tell her she had to take this thing. And so I am not anti-vax. What I am is pro-freedom. And I think that anybody in Canada that can take a step back and look at it as freedom of choice, freedom of expression, freedom is, can get it pretty quickly. But then you have our state media. Today, the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, published a report that said, why do right-wingers use the word freedom so much? Or the far right. And you're like, I beg your pardon. Why? Because that's the basis of Canada. It's in our national anthem. This true north, strong and free. Anyway, so people say it's weird that it happened in Canada. There's another expression, and people accuse me of repeating myself all the time, but here it goes. Canada is nice except on the ice. Okay. Or Canadians are nice except on the ice, meaning the ice hockey rink. But listen, this is happening on a full-blown ice hockey rink. It's the middle of winter up here. To your listeners, like we're minus 20 degrees Celsius. There's guys when they camp out in their trucks outside. They're not outside, but in their cabs, but just outside their door. It's literally minus 30 in the middle of the night, right? This is right in the middle of the heart of the Canadian winter. And perhaps that, you'd argue it wouldn't be as effective as it was in the summer. I mean, this is not for the faint of heart. These guys and ladies obviously hugely believe in their purpose. And I do too.
Yeah, yeah. It's as you've said. I think I view it very much as a pro freedom thing at this point. It's about
Yeah.
choice, and like most people have done it. So that's the thing that confuses me is that, and I think they're saying that 90% of the truckers have been vaccinated.
Hard to say. I think that's a global number. 90% of truckers across the nation versus how many truckers are at the rally. Sometimes these stats get swayed in different ways, but 90% of the Canadian population is vaccinated, if I'm not mistaken. That being said, we certainly bump up against the highest averages in the world, and the government continued to promise us freedoms if we passed a certain level. Certain thresholds would allow the mandates to be lifted, and they have never come through on those promises. And essentially, enough was enough with certain elements of the population, and brave elements. I mean, these people drove across Canada. This is their last stand. And look, I have 3 kids, and this is what my granddad believed in. He was a fighter ace in World War I and a group commandant in World War II. He fought tyranny. He was awarded the Order of the British Empire, a very prestigious medal. And there's no way he fought and risked his life in order for us to be a bunch of, squids. And we are not. And someone pushed the truckers too far, and then they mobilized. And yeah, it's becoming a bit of a global event, isn't it?
Yeah. So maybe it'd be useful here, just before we go into what happened with GoFundMe and Bitcoin, just to sort of go back for people, because one of the things that's really really shocked me has been, I've spoken to a lot of people about this. I've been talking to a lot of people like through the last couple of weeks, and almost everyone that I speak to has no idea that it's happening. Like people who would normally be aware of like,
again, it's a state, it's a globally sponsored. What's the word? When you shut down the media, globally sponsored
censorship. Or it's a blackout, really, a media
blackout. Yeah, globally sponsored blackout. And well, it's not surprising, because you get people who think, oh my God, if it can happen in Canada, it can happen anywhere. And it is happening anywhere. You're seeing it in Paris. You're seeing these huge convoy or protests in Canberra. I'm not even sure where that is, if it's in Aussie or New Zealand.
Actually, I'm going to get pull these up. So I'm pulling it up for some people here while you're talking. There's a protest as far as the eye can see in Canberra, and then I'm going to pull up for people as well. There is this was the capital city. Actually, I'll share it with you as well if you'd like to see it.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so that should be showing you.
That's
as well,
amazing,
isn't it? It's absolutely incredible.
That is crazy. And where is that? That's Canberra. But what country is that in?
That's Australia.
Oh, Aussie. Okay. And did you see it in New Zealand, the Haka rugby chant?
Yeah,
I played some rugby, in my younger years, and man, let me tell you, when you played a team and they came out with that war dance at the beginning of or forgive me if I'm offending anybody, it's not a war dance, maybe, or whatever it is. It certainly struck fear into the hearts of many of the opposing players in rugby. That's for sure. So
I had a school. My rugby coach in school was Willie Anderson. So he was an Irish and I
actually recognize that name. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, so he was famous for taking the entire Irish team. I think it was the Irish team or the Lions team up, and they stood like arm in arm, like stared
against them. Yeah, I remember that one. I remember that one. Yeah, Isn't that funny? So my rugby coach when I was growing up was a guy Keith Wilkinson, and he played for the Scottish team in his youth before coming to Canada or whatever. But anyway, rugby's not that big in Canada, although there's certain. We excel at certain parts of the game. Our sevens team at one point was pretty good. But anyway, back to the here and now. These are people that for some reason we have been silent for too long. And then I'm not sure what pushed the trigger. But when you saw these convoys driving across Canada, and I encourage you to look on social media in Canada. A professor down in Cornell, Dave Callum, who I actually respect a lot. He tweeted one out recently. He goes, "This brought tears to my eyes." And it's just a video, a 7-minute video about truckers driving across Canada, but the overpass is flooded with people and, on snowbanks, right? Like 10-foot high snowbanks, young kids holding signs, "Go truckers." And then what do you hear on social media? Well, whatever the Trudeau says it's a small fringe element with unacceptable views. According to who, Mr. Trudeau? According to you. So you are the author of who can have views that are acceptable versus unacceptable. You know, so it's scary. I've been calling out Trudeau for a while. I don't know if I did it on our other podcast, but like I've been concerned about him as a leader who doesn't understand finance. Because he says things like, you know, the budget will balance itself, or he did say things, and forgive me if I don't care about monetary policy. Those are things that drive me crazy as a guy who spent 30 years trading risk.
Yeah.
If he was the CEO of a company and the CEO of a company said that, there'd be, you know, his stock would fall precipitously. The short sellers would be out with their knives. And yet, you know, here's a guy who says it on behalf of a country, and it sort of floats through the press. Nobody really understands it, I guess, but really dangerous to have a guy in power with this many quirks.
Yeah, and I had the Fringe Minority clip queued, but I'll put it in the description. I have it in the description for people just because I'm sure quite a lot of people are familiar with it for now. But you mentioned earlier on Twitter, actually, that there's been a state of emergency declared.
Well, it's not a state of emergency. It's called the Emergency Measures Act. Okay. And this is an act that was I guess I'm not just going to say rewritten because I don't understand how politics work that well. But prior to this, there was the War Measures Act. And that's basically the ability of a prime minister to invoke martial law. And there's only been 3 times that War Measures Act had been invoked. One was in World War I, one was in World War II, and the third time was during a crisis in Quebec, predominantly called the Front FLQ. It stood for, if I remember correctly, Front de Libération du Québec. Okay, and I grew up in Montreal at that time, and they killed a federal politician. They found the guy's body in the trunk of a car, and if I'm not mistaken, they cut his ear off and sent it to like so these guys truly were dangerous people. Now look, I'm not going to call out FLQ versus other organizations. I'll just say this protest in Ottawa. Okay, so now the War Measures Act was rewritten and termed the Emergency Measures Act. And since it's been rewritten, it has not been invoked. But let's compare what this current Trudeau, interestingly enough, it was Trudeau's father, Pierre Trudeau, who invoked the War Measures Act in Quebec, or across the nation due to Quebec in the late 70s, probably mid 70s. I don't remember exactly when it was. I probably 72 maybe. But I remember growing up in Montreal and being scared, right? Like you're a young kid, you hear about kidnappings of people, deaths in the trunk of a car. And so that's a scary time. And his father, Trudeau's father, took the measures upon himself. But let's be honest, this now is a peaceful protest in the capital of Ottawa where there's kids running around playing on bouncy castles. And he's going to invoke the Emergency Measures Act, the equivalent. It's not quite martial law, but you get where it's come from to deal with this protest. I think we should be more worried that he's not fit to lead, to hold office rather than him considering the Emergency Measures Act.
Yeah, it's the way he talks about it is really, really, it's just like, it's not that I don't think he has the right to think the way he does, right? It's the problem for me is that it's like you're deeming everyone that doesn't share your view of things completely like it's not. I think he said
it's a spoiled kid. It's a spoiled kid syndrome, right? He's going to hold his breath until people, until he gets his way. Like, I mean, I'm no psychologist, but my goodness, somebody better sit down and analyze this guy because he's dangerous as a leader. He is a live wire, and these types of live wires don't make good leaders.
Yeah. It's really. I'm concerned for Canada, but like I said before, I'm feeling positive because there's so many people. Like I don't know, when I see the energy at at some of the protests. Like,
Yeah.
so I'll get some of the videos up. I'll share them actually with you actually.
Okay.
So while
Sure.
I'm talking about this, because I think it's
Sure.
useful. So some of the like the people dancing has just been amazing.
Oh no, it's crazy. It's
Like,
beautiful, right?
like these guys like
Yeah.
dancing around.
I saw this one. I saw this one earlier.
Yeah. And
Yeah, then they get a guy with Sidney Crosby. So do you know who Sidney Crosby is? So this is
No, actually.
that jersey, the jersey of the guy dancing. Sidney Crosby is one of our best hockey players ever, and he scored the overtime winning goal to win the gold medal against the Americans in the last Winter Olympics. Okay, so like Sidney Crosby is a renowned, a revered Canadian hockey player. Certainly in the same league as here's beautiful stuff. This is what they're calling insurrectionists. This was actually in downtown Toronto, though. This wasn't in Ottawa.
Okay, this is Toronto.
This was Toronto, and this was a bunch of the Sikh community. Whatever he's holding, he's got a hockey stick in one hand, and then a Sikh. A Sikh, there's something there that there's a Sikh, they called it a Bunjaba or something like that. Anyway, I hope I'm not offending anybody that way, but that's in Toronto. That's not even in downtown Ottawa, that view.
I couldn't believe it. But, and then, so you had that happen, and then then you had like more and more people seem to have been joining the protest. So I guess find some footage here of a convoy. Like, it's not just truckers. There's like construction crews,
farmers,
and there's some farmers coming up further down here, and it's and then not just that. Then there was the Mounties coming over the border.
That one I don't know. I don't know about that.
So I was just like scrolling through things all like for hours yesterday trying to find some like, cool footage for us, and I didn't know where to stop. Like there was so many like amazing moments.
It's crazy. Like this one, okay, sure. There's because we have a big Western prairies, right? It's lots of farmers, lots of cowboys. Some of them. Sometimes they come over the border. There's so many undefended border crossings in Canada, border points of entry. Like we are the largest unprotected border what's the word? It's undefended maybe. Anyway, there's points of entry into the US where you don't even stop, right? You just cross the border and then you're assumed you have to go to the other side and report yourself. But tons of these little farming roads and the main border crossings, of course, have huge points of entry, ports of entry. But, in a border that's 5,000 kilometers long, there's tons of little entry points, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like the whole concept for me is a little strange just because like coming from Europe, that in Northern Ireland to the Republic of Ireland, obviously it wasn't like that when I was a kid.
Okay.
But now there's no checks, and then going through the whole of Europe, like there's no checks. No one checks anything.
Okay, because that's because of the whatever it's called, right?
Yeah, the Schengen zone. It is.
But it was part of your Eurozone.
The freedom of movement. Yeah, the European.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the four basic freedoms.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's cool for some people.
Yeah, Britain has not given it up.
The Brexit. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately. So then after the protesters have driven the whole way across Canada, they were waved and signaled into the center of Ottawa.
Yes.
And then people started raising an obscene, amazing amount of money for them on GoFundMe to begin with.
Correct.
So I think they raised up to $10 million, as far as I'm aware, on GoFundMe.
It's a good round number, plus or minus. Yeah.
So then, what happened with that exactly?
To the best of my understanding, there was that the amount was raised, and then there was an injunction. It first started by the city of Ottawa wanted to seize the funds because they wanted reparations for damages. Okay, so let's understand. Ottawa's somewhat in the center of the country. It's not quite, but the trucks came and people came from both sides of the nation to participate in the protest. And some of the people in Ottawa certainly got I'm not going to use the word overrun, but it's not like there was no violence. There was tons of people in the city. Certainly there were some businesses that claimed they were disadvantaged. to me, I'd say like, look, you have all these people in your city that aren't usually there. I'd open my business personally, but if you're going to close your doors, then that's your decision. But so the funds were essentially frozen, and this happened. Let's say that the convoy arrived in Ottawa about 14 days ago. So GoFundMe was working for the first 3 days of the protest. Now, a couple of guys, I'm not sure if you want me to talk about this right now, about the Bitcoin funding alternative that was set up. So what happened was, on the first Saturday, 2 weeks ago, say 16 days ago, on the first Saturday, there was a guy that I know, boots on the ground in Ottawa, that I saw walking around literally holding up opt out buy Bitcoin. And I know him because I was on his podcast. This is the guy at Nobody Caribou. And I knew him, and I'm like, Nick, I'm not going to dox his last name. Nick, that's you holding up the sign. This is outrageous. He goes, oh, you wouldn't believe the energy in my city. The truckers are amazing. I say, Nick, let's start a Bitcoin funding page. Now, I'll admit that in the back of my mind, I was thinking there was a chance that the GoFundMe funds would be frozen, but that's not why we did this. We did it because we wanted to seriously raise money for the truckers, just because, using Bitcoin. And for the first 3 days, there were the two funds. We weren't competing with GoFundMe, but we started to raise a bunch of funds. And then we recruited some other guys, more technologically savvy, certainly, than me. This included a guy by the name of Ben Sessions. He goes under the moniker BTC Sessions. And he was able to put up this Tallycoin page, and he was able to put up the Lightning Network address or facilitate Lightning Network transactions. And so it really started to gain traction. And then I think it was probably the Tuesday or Wednesday after the Saturday, that's when GoFundMe funds got frozen. And they gave, originally, Josh, they were going to say, we're freezing the funds and we're taking them from you, and then we're going to distribute them to the province or to other charities, for gosh sakes, right? And
of their choice, as far as I was aware.
I'm sorry?
Of their choice. They weren't
of their choice, correct. Now, here's the even more scary part. Whether or not you agree with the truckers, imagine if you had raised a bunch of money, I'm talking to anybody now, in a cause you truly believed with, and all of a sudden it was confiscated and was going to be used potentially or awarded to the people that you were on the opposite side of. Like it even got more ridiculous. So then GoFundMe backed down after some US senators or politicians said, I'm investigating GoFundMe. And GoFundMe basically said, okay, we're not taking the funds. We're going to allow you we're going to refund them. So that meant a bunch, of the 10 million could go to other funding platforms. Well, ours was already up and running, and we were, we had raised maybe say 4 million sats, which is really not that much, given that there's 100 million sats in each Bitcoin, right? So the 4 million, we had 0.4 of a Bitcoin. No, I guess it was, maybe we had 400. How many did we have? Anyway, point is we had maybe a half a Bitcoin when the GoFundMe thing got frozen. And then all of a sudden the funds started to pour into this alternative funding mechanism, as well as another one called Give Send Go. Give Send Go. All right. And so then Give Send Go started accumulating. I think they might be up to $7 million right now. But the Bitcoin as of today is up to a total of 22 Bitcoin collected, as well as another 8 Bitcoin that are pledged. So the 22 Bitcoin is over $1 million Canadian dollars. Wow. And so that's a pretty substantial thing. And now the good thing is that the truckers actually are becoming interested in Bitcoin. So one of the things we did, Nick, myself, and Ben Sessions, is we said, look, we need to bring more legitimacy to this. We have recruited another very for lack of a better word, well, we recruited another very well-known Canadian Bitcoiner, Jeff Booth. Mm-hmm. Jeff is become a close friend of mine. He is a absolute patriot. He is also author of the best book I've ever read, which is called The Price of Tomorrow. For any of your listeners, you got to listen to or you got to read Jeff's book. Anyway, we recruited him as basically a face of trustworthiness, because that's what he is. Yeah, and not to say we're not trustworthy, but my gosh, this guy is honest as the day is long. And we set up a multi-sig wallet where there were four signers: Jeff, Ben Session, Nick, and myself. And we got the head of the truckers convoy. So we had a multi-sig wallet with 5 signatories. And one of them was trucker and the other 4 were Bitcoiners. Now, when all of this stuff came again, when they threatened to shut down GiftSendGo as well, we said, okay, we got to get these keys out of the hands of Canadians. So I'll only tell your listeners is those 5 signatories, only 2 of them remain. Right. And there's 3 others that will remain confident, so no authorities can tell them, require you to sit down and under duress divulge who the other key holders are.
So so that's where we sit. Lengths.
Listen, this is scary when the government does what they do, right? I'll tell you, that's scary. What's really scary, again, is the war measures. Like, war measures, I don't even know what that means. Does it mean you can sit down and put a guy in the electric chair and, I say that tongue in cheek, but, sit down and say, tell me who the other key holder is. Yeah. Now, the good thing is I won't be able to tell because I don't know, which is so cool. So, you could torture me forever and I could throw out Justin Trudeau's the other key holder, and they won't believe that, but that would be about as true as whoever other's name I threw out. So, well, this is what we're working on. And that's where we are. And the Bitcoin community's gone a little true Bitcoiners, right? Some of them are accusing us of changing the narrative and this. I'll just say, look, guys, things are fluid. We haven't distributed any of the Bitcoin yet. Everything's on the table. The most important things, it will get to the truckers. It will not get to the government. Okay? And go fuck yourselves, everyone who's telling me that we are somehow conflicted and everything like that. All right. So it's just, this is what we live with. I'm extremely proud of the guys, the younger guys, Ben Sessions, my God, super, super cool dude. Nick St. Louis, and all sorts of other people that have been part of this movement. This is truly a time where the younger kids have stepped up. And then, Jeff Booth, once again, it's cost him some, unfortunately, it's cost him some of his political friendships on the other side of the aisle. I won't, go too in depth in there, but it was divulged in a Canadian newspaper that he was he removed himself from the board of a publicly traded, it was a hospital. He stepped down as a board member of a hospital. So look, but you got to do what you do in the event of a challenge to the future and for the children. And it's fluid. It's a fluid situation. It's, I tell you, I think it's this afternoon, right about almost now, where they might be in the House of Parliament in Canada voting on whether, they allow I'm calling out Liberal MPs. That's the party that Trudeau's a leader of, a minority, though. He's a minority leader. Gosh, if you're going to invoke the War Measures Act or the Emergency Measures Act to be absolutely correct. I mean, this is something not to be taken lightly. This is really scary.
Yeah. I mean, it's for me. One of the things that I'm witnessing is this. It looks like the perfect case study as to why dictators and authoritarians don't like Bitcoin. because they have decided to like say,
Couldn't,
okay,
couldn't it be
yeah,
exactly that? Like this is, so there's a publication called Zero Hedge. I used to be in the hedge fund business. I'm not sure how much I told you on your last podcast, but here's the neat thing. Like I've spent 30 years in financial markets, and this is finally penetrating the mainstream financial market asset managers when they say something like, this is the use case. Like you got the people like Shifty Pete who's out there saying there's no utility in Bitcoin. Oh, is that right there, Peter? So now send me some gold to help me with this cause that you believe in. Send me some gold, and then whatever. But the reality is other people like Zero Hedge, this is a very renowned publication, basically just says, look, this was last weekend. Says this is the use case of Bitcoin defined, right? And non-censorable, non-confiscatable, transferable, portable, immutable. Like you give me all these things and you're like, this is perfect. And then take it one step farther, where the TD Bank in Canada, I think that was associated with the new Give, Send, Go campaign, had $1 million in change of Give, Send, Go, Gift, Send, Go money, and they froze that.
yeah,
Okay. And the TD Bank, which is, one of Canada's 5 national banks, global institution, they basically folded to the pressure of the government. Now people will say, oh, they had to because of laws and this and laws and that. Doesn't matter. It still got confiscated.
yeah. I'm just getting this up for people actually now, so they can see this, that it's real. Let me share it with you actually. So you should be able to see that, hopefully. So,
yeah. Okay.
TD
there you
Bank
go.
freezes 2 personal accounts that had $1.1 million paid into them to support Canadian truckers.
Right.
That is just, for me, that they just had to apply to the courts, and that was it. And it's like,
I don't even know, but here's the worst part of it. I used to work at TD Bank as a trader. Not traitor, although you could argue I was a trader, trader. Some of those may be traitors over there, but here's all I know is I'd be, if I believed in the Freedom Convoy and I worked at TD Bank and they did this, I'd be looking at myself like, who do I work for, right? What am I supporting here? And anyway,
it's like,
this is interesting times.
Have you ever seen, there's a fantastic sketch from these 2 British comedians, Mitchell and Webb, and they do a sketch of a bunch of Nazis in their like war camp behind the lines in World War II. And there's a guy looking, and he starts looking around at all the skulls on everything. And he goes, Hans, are we the baddies? Are we the bad guys?
Yeah. Oh man. Eh? Well, yeah. And Josh, you bring up an interesting point. Look, I mean, the 2 world wars, horrendous, awful stuff. But, everyone says if they lived in Germany, they would have been able to call this out, right? They would have been able to see it and call it out. And there's an interesting psychologist in Canada, a world-renowned author who's becoming a Bitcoiner, actually. His name is Jordan Peterson. I'm not sure if you've ever read
Yes,
Jordan Peterson.
I have tickets to see him in.
Okay, I'll tell you what. He basically said, look, if you are under the illusion that you would have called out the government for actions in leading up to the Nazi, it happens drip by drip. It's like it's a drowning or a death by 1,000 cuts. It's fine if they put the star on somebody's uniform. Oh, what's so bad about that? Oh, it's okay if they take their businesses. Oh, all of a sudden we're taking over, we're invading Poland, and then you're still indoctrinated. So gosh, I really hope that we don't, we remain a peaceful protest here. And I'm confident that the leadership of the convoy in Canada is really solid in that respect. So long story. I mean, interesting times. I'm 58 years old. I have been alive long enough to remember the last time the War Measures Act was invoked in Canada. We should look that up, but I think it was like 1972.
Yeah,
1970. So I was 7 years old when it happened. Okay. I still remember sitting at my dinner table when my dad was listening to the radio. If I'm not mistaken, it was a Sunday night when they first announced the War Measures Act. And my dad was nervous. He's like, holy shit. And I'm a 7-year-old kid. I'm like, what does it mean, Dad? What does it mean? And, we lived in Quebec. The guy's name was Pierre Laporte. I still remember the name of the politician who had been kidnapped and murdered. They cut someone's ear off. I'm not sure if it was his ear or whatever, but it's just ugly stuff for a 7-year-old kid. You're like, geez, that is scary shit. So I don't want, look, I don't even know what I want. I certainly know I don't want Trudeau to be leader of this country. He disappointed me before with his buffoonery, saying stuff like the budget will balance itself, as I mentioned. But now I actually think he's unstable. I think he's like a spoiled little kid who's now dug both of his heels in the ground. And he's like, that's it. I'm going to make my parents pay, just a little brat. And that's not cool.
Yeah. What do you make of all of these, like, World Economic Forum connections that Trudeau has, and
sick,
then
isn't
like
it?
a whole
And then,
bunch of leaders.
Well, not only that,
the
then the lady, whatever you'd call her, down in New Zealand is the same thing.
Ardern, but there's a bunch of them.
And then you get Klaus saying, "Oh, Trudeau," and I think he might have been referring to her. There are star pupils. Who is this guy, Klaus Schwab? My goodness, like well, anyway,
he looks like Palpatine. Like,
I don't know who that is, but he sounds evil. So
it's the Emperor in Star Wars.
Okay, well, I think he's worse than that. He could be like the James Bond villain, right? He's the guy that lives in a volcano in the James Bond movies, right? But I don't know. This happens slowly. Like, you don't see it until once it's done. It's so clear in hindsight.
Yeah, it's really strange. So for the last little bit that I've got you for, I figured we might be able to pick your mind about what's happening in the markets at the minute. There's a lot of turmoil, and there's quite a few people in the comments asking for some talk about markets and about the SEC and sort of regulators being paid off. Basically, so what's your estimation of where we're at right now with the markets? Everything has been all
market. Let's define. I can comment on every market, whether you want to isolate it to the Bitcoin market, whether you want to talk about equities. Let's talk about equities for a sec. Okay.
I was going to start.
Equities don't matter. Can I be very clear about that? It's all about credit, and equities are going to swing around. So right now the VIX is at 30% annualized. That means daily price moves of 2%, plus or minus 2% in the equity index. And how you get that number is you have to take it to a daily basis. And it turns out you divide the annualized VIX of 30% by the square root of 250, whatever trading days there are in the year. Like, I think it's 254, 256. Okay. So it's basically the square root. It's basically 30 divided by 16. It gives you what your daily vol is, which means 2% swings in equity markets. That starts being interesting. But imagine when it gets to 60, when the VIX hits 60. When the VIX hits 60, that implies there are 4% daily swings in the equity market. Holy Corona. Nothing works. Okay. And it's primarily being driven by credit markets, because the credit guys are rushing to the equity markets to hit any bid that exists in a subordinate claim in the capital structure. So the poor equity guys get run over 6 ways till Sunday, and they don't know what they're doing. And a lot of them are rookies in the market that have never even understood the priority of claim that takes place in capital structure. But that's where they think the money is. And, at the end of the day, it's all being driven by credit right now. And it's vol. It's the vol traders, of which I spent half of my life being a volatility trader. You can run over the poor little rookies in the equity markets, and they have no clue. And you're like, thanks for being there. Squish, 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 you dumb squids. Bang, 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 done, 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 done. And then they gap, right? The bid evaporates, then you slam it in their face, six figures lower, and then it collapses upon itself. And you're not doing it. You're doing it to hedge a position in credit that's up here. And you're like, you do and there's no way this credit is worth anything less than 100 cents on the dollar, as long as there's any value whatsoever left in the equity. So you're just like, sell it and don't stop. I worked for a guy on a desk. This was his classic line. He goes, "I want you to be 400% of the volume." he goes, "I don't want a sale to take place in this stock that's not you." He goes, "I want you to be 400% of the volume," which obviously is impossible, but that's how it was imperative when he wanted to hedge something. I don't care what the price is. You get me that hedge because I know I live up here in this part of the capital structure. So these poor equity guys, like, cannon fodder, bang, bang, bang. So equities are driven by credit. Credit is ugly right now. Equities will not stabilize until credit stabilizes. And guess what? Credit is nowhere close to stabilizing when the Fed is going to raise 8 times. Get out of Dodge. You're not even going to get 2 interest rate hikes before the Fed has to tap the brakes on this tapering and realize there is no way they can continue tapering when the equity markets are moving in 4% volatilities. And what does that mean? It means all new issue markets are shut. Any company that needs to raise growth capital, you can't do it. You can't do it in debt. You can't do it in equity. So what does that mean? You're pricing in, you're going to put your country into a recession, absolutely certain, before you've even raised interest rates. So that's what I look at. Then we take it to another asset silo, which is Bitcoin, which people really don't understand what it is. The most beautiful instrument to hedge against all the shenanigans, but they think it's a risk asset. It's not a risk asset. It's a long volatility asset, because when you're long Bitcoin, you are short credit, meaning you're already short all this stuff up here. Wow. Well, the education process needs to go a long way, because we have all these machines. And when I say machines, I mean these are literally Cray supercomputers that are trading volatility amongst the different assets and correlations and whatnot. They're selling Bitcoin just because they think there should be a correlation between equities and Bitcoin, when it's absolutely the reverse. When equities are going down, Bitcoin becomes the insurance. And it should be going up in price, but they haven't programmed those computers quite properly yet. So there'll be some short covering, face ripping rallies in the Bitcoin square when the computers, or the humans that program the computers, realize, holy shit, I'm totally inverted. Meaning I've been shorting something that I should be buying to hedge this idiot fucking thing called equities that I should actually be selling. And it's just so funny the way the world is set up.
Yeah, I mean, every time I speak to you, man, or anytime even I just listen to one of your videos, I'm like, I understand so little about the markets. Like, I can understand like specific little things, but then there's these whole other games going on.
That's just it. Look, I've done it for 30 years. This is not easy. And by the way, you learn zero of this in school. Zero. So how did I earn my stripes? Well, I didn't blow up. And how did I not blow up? Well, I studied like some sort of crazed maniac, and I took small positions. And then I made them bigger positions as I got my confidence up as to how markets work and how things function. And look, you cannot learn this stuff. And I sat in, I've used this again, guys who I got my share of haters out there. Look, yeah, Foss repeats himself. Did he say this? Did he say this? Oh, fuck you guys. I sat in a risk chair. Okay. I sat in a risk chair for 30 years. Until you fucking knuckleheads have done that, go pound sand, okay? You don't understand. And then explain it to me like I'm 5. Oh, go fuck off. You are 5 years old. You shouldn't be playing in the equity markets if you don't know what you're doing. So how else can I say this, Josh? I mean, I get frustrated because I say things 10 times and they say Foss repeats himself. And you know what the answer is? And you stupid fools still don't understand what I'm saying after the 10th fucking time that I'm telling you this. Right?
Yeah. I mean, you're hitting a lot of the same points you made last time, but I mean, it's things that.
But it's coming true now. This is what's playing out. Okay. Do not fiddle around in equities right now. If you have no idea what you're doing, take your money and put it somewhere that you're not going to lose everything, because equity markets are going to be used as the whipping boy until the Fed realizes they have lost control of everything. And they're going to go back to this thing called printing money, which is going to accelerate the debt crisis. And then you're going to realize I better have bought Bitcoin rather than selling it.
Yeah. I mean, I can't see there being a lot of people regretting buying it in 10 years time, that would be, well, I say that hoping that I'm not one of those people. But
as I say to one of my other, this is a square on the bingo card. So one guy that definitely gets under my skin, and I'll give him credit for getting under my skin. He puts together a bingo card, right? Pretends that, okay, this is the Foss podcast bingo card. Has he said this yet? And so the other one I say is, let's talk in 20 years. But the reality is, let's talk in 20 years, provided we make it that long.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
because this is about survival, people. And the only way you survive is by purchasing insurance contracts that allow you to survive the stupid part of your trades. And everybody has stupid parts of their portfolio. Primarily right now, it's for all you clowns that own bonds, which I've been trying to tell you for the last year, that bonds are absolutely the most putrid investment you could make. But certainly there's guys out there that are saying, oh no, bonds, you can trade them and you can pick up nickels in front of a steamroller. Well, now you get what you get. Okay. You went in there to pick up nickels in front of a steamroller and you just lost 20%. Yeah. Good work. You wanted to make $1 and you ended up losing $20. You fucking whatever, It's just like, whatever.
So what have you made of, the inflation numbers continue to rise in the UK and in the US, and I assume Canada's on a fairly similar trajectory.
It is the same, but the only number the world cares about is the inflation in the US, because the Fed sets rates for the rest of the world. So what the Fed does, and the 10-year rate in particular, is the most important benchmark for the entire world. So if they're setting it based off a US CPI, that's all anybody that's ever managed risk really understands and should care about. Yeah. And so inflation in the US is 7.5%, and the 10-year treasury is 2%. Okay. That means on a real basis, you are losing 5.5% a year to inflation by owning treasury bonds. And that's before the debasement of the currency. Yeah. What a joke investment. The last time that inflation was this high, the US 10-year rate was 10% yield. Okay, at least there was a positive real return, right? 10% nominal minus 7.5% inflation gives you a 2.5% real return, positive.
So why isn't everyone dumping their bonds?
Beg your pardon?
Why isn't everyone dumping the bonds?
They either fail mathematics, which is totally possible, or they have to own them. Or more concerning is they don't believe that inflation is a long-term problem. They bought into this transitory element, which is still silly as well. Sell them until proven that it's transitory. Don't hold this thing, because if it ain't transitory, bonds can literally drop another 20% easily. Now, that's not a safe return for an asset that's supposed to be your safety asset in your portfolio.
Yeah. It stuns me that we're at this point. I mean, it's
isn't it? But it's sort of like, this is crazy as it is, and I don't want to equate this to some of the stuff that went on in Germany prior to World War II, but it stuns you until you realize it's death by dopamine. Like, you're a dope that you didn't believe that bonds couldn't do what they're doing because you were intoxicated by the talk of the Fed that this stuff will be transitory and we will do the right thing and all this garbage. All right. It's really your own fault.
I mean, like last year when they started, or 2 years ago, even not even last year, 2 years ago, when the money printing started.
Yeah,
I was just like this
for real. Not for real, for most seriously. But it's money printing's been going on for my whole life.
Well, yes, and but I mean, they really went.
Oh yeah, they turned the knob so that there's a point of no return. Yeah,
yeah, and I just said, well, there's going to be a bunch of inflation at some point, because, like, as far as I understood with printing money is like, you either have to make something really tangible in order to not make the currency just more and more worthless. Like, if you're going to print a bunch of money and then you make something really physical.
Yeah, it's your house. Well, it's your house hasn't gone up in value. It's the number of units of account that have gone down in value, that it takes more of those same units of account to buy the same value of a house.
Yeah, but how can I see this, right? And world leading financial journalists and
Well, some of them
economists
do
can
see
be
it. Don't forget.
stunned.
Okay, Josh. No. Don't forget how much people are paid not to see it. Meaning they have these high profile jobs that they want to write that they see this happening, but they know they'll lose their job if they do write that. So they don't write it. And then there's people who are downright dumb that are writing financial opinions because they just have someone like their uncle Bloomberg gave a certain person a job to write an article, referencing a guy who's since blocked me, but Joe Weisenthal, look, he should not be writing about finance because he has zero clue about how markets work. I'm afraid that's just the facts.
Yeah. So I think your bingo guy has arrived in the comments section. He says, "I'll be playing bingo for real in the rest home."
Who is it? What's the guy's name?
Dodie, I think.
A different one. No, that's not him. No, that's not him. I'm okay with it too. Look, play bingo. If I help to teach somebody, if I help certain people not to lose money because they follow idiot advice like Peter Schiff's advice, then I'm okay with it. Call me whatever you want. All right. But Peter Schiff is a smart guy who's conflicted, and that's disgraceful. When he's giving advice to people that he knows is wrong, but he continues to do it so he can attract subscribers, that's just outright wrong. And I sort of like his son, but it's time for his son to tell his old man to shut his pie hole. Okay. He is making extremely poor choices on an ethical basis, advising people against something that he knows he's giving poor advice on.
Okay, so just to wrap up then,
Sure.
Final thing, what do you think is going to happen with the truckers? So there is the emergency measures have been brought in. I know that
honestly, it's a peaceful process. We have this thing in Canada called the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And the last living author of that, a guy by the name of Peckford, the other day gave a speech at the truckers convoy, and he said, look, you are not breaking the law. This is your Canadian right to want these freedoms. And so that was a border crossing somewhere near the U.S. border, I'm told. I don't know where that is.
That is apparently near the Alberta border.
Alberta. Okay. So look, I mean, this is not a fringe minority. Okay. Trudeau is what is he? He's delusional. All right. He could look at this and still not see it because he's delusional that people actually like him. There are certain people that like him, but only 16% of the Canadian population support him.
Only 16. Wow.
1/6. Yeah. 1/6.
So this is
the Windsor. This is the Windsor Bridge. Yeah. This is a bridge for one of the most important trade points in Canada, right across the river from Detroit. So all the Canadian auto manufacturers ship their parts across this bridge. It's called the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor, Ontario. And the protesters who are not linked to the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa shut down that bridge.
We should make that clear, actually, because I hadn't realized that it was two separate sort of protests.
Correct. The Freedom Convoy is for Ottawa, and that was the Ambassador Bridge.
Yeah. Okay. So, Greg, I really want to thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
It's amazing to see your fellow countrymen standing up for freedom, but more importantly, to anyone that doesn't agree with them, the way that I think it's so crucial to note that the way they've been vilified is awful. That's not how we discuss, differences of opinion in a civilized nation. And the people who disagree with the right to be there, I think should understand that it doesn't matter if you agree with their cause. If they're being peaceful, we should be in support of the right to protest, because that's how we prevent governments becoming tyrannical.
100%. And I will stress that this is the basis of our democracy, is the ability to voice a different opinion. And I know I have a difference of opinion from a lot of people out there. But again, freedom is not free. Okay, you have to stand up for your rights, and you have to sometimes pay the price. And I just am very proud of the truckers. I think that we will win. We've already won on a number of fronts. We have exposed Trudeau for being a susceptible leader. Much like in trading, your worst trades are always made when when you let your emotions get the worst of you. Well, Trudeau's made a horrible decision because he let his emotions not have him sit down and discuss or negotiate with the truckers. Now he's backed himself into a corner, and he is risking a very dangerous legislation that will forever cement his legacy as being a horrible leader, but also, let's hope, doesn't lead to violence. Yeah. And that's not what I want. We want freedom, peaceful protest. And on that metric, the Canadian truckers have done an amazing job. And we thank everybody for the worldwide support. Like, these donations in Bitcoin have come in from all around the world, incredible amounts from Eastern Europeans who've lived under tyranny and don't want it to happen and are scared of what they see as a gradual government overreach. So thanks for having me, Josh. I do have to jump.
Yes.
And I wish I could see the comments. I didn't see any of the comments, but don't shield me from the haters. That's fine. I'll take my haters on, because this is what a discussion is your experience versus my experience. And why do I do this? Well, there's not that many people in the world that have actually sat, again, I'll say it, in my risk chair for 30 years, seeing all the things that are wrong with the markets, and then have the opportunity to at least shield people using this most beautiful technology called Bitcoin. Do your homework. Study up, learn math. I got to go. Love you guys.
No problem. Thanks very much, man. Absolute pleasure.
My pleasure. Great talking to you, Josh. Thank you very much. Have a great one, buddy.
You too.
See ya.
Bye. Okay, and that's Greg. I'm going to play us out with one thing that I saw. It was a fantastic moment where the police were coming to arrest protesters on the border. And I just have to pull it up here, and then I will leave it with you.
We're standing on guard.
Lean on me.
We're standing on guard.
When you're not strong.
We're standing on guard.
This is emotional, guys.
I love every single one of you. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. As we forgive those who trespass against us, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Guys. Canada.
That's right, guys. Good job. Good job. Proud of you. This is amazing.
I will die for your children. I've never done this kind of thing before. None of us have.
Keep sharing, you guys. Please keep sharing. This is a peaceful stand.
I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. It won't be long. I'm gonna need somebody.
Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the podcast. If you want to leave us a comment, that would be awesome. Please like, share, subscribe, and if you're listening on Apple, please leave us a review. Until next time, thanks for listening.